Guys, call me Skip Bayless of the MMA world. As you all know, this is my life. I could talk about this all day. I could talk about some of the biggest fights, some of the worst fights, fights that happened this past weekend. Alexander Volkanovski defended his title against the Korean Zombie. I'll get to the fight itself later. But the reason why I say call me Skip Bayless of the fight world is because not a lot of people tell the truth. A lot of people would rather praise people for their performances, and that's fine and dandy. I'm all for praising people for their hard-earned success. I'm all for it. I'm not one to be a hater. But when there's facts and when there's perspective out in the world, it is my job to call it out and present the facts and the perspective to you guys. There isn't a debate show for MMA like there is for other sports. There isn't a Skip and Shannon for MMA. There isn't a First Take for MMA. There's just simple fight analysis shows, simple fight breakdown shows. It's kind of what I do here, but in this case, it's a lot different. It's a lot different because Alexander Volkanovski is overrated, and he's a paper champion. And I'm going to prove to you why. I'm not discrediting anything he's done up into his title shot against Max Holloway at UFC 245, December of 2019. He defeated Chad Mendes, who was on the outs of his career, but he defeated the King of Rio, Jose Aldo, in a pretty dominant fashion as well. And he was the backup for when Max Holloway fought Frankie Edgar the very first time. You're going to see me compare him a lot to Jon Jones. I know Alexander Volkanovski hasn't accomplished what Jon Jones has, but at the end, you could truly see that things are different and the same in that regard. So like I said, he really bursted onto the scene when he defeated Chad Mendes at UFC 232 back in 2018. Fought Jose Aldo at UFC 237 in May of 2019. And that was kind of a title eliminator, I would say, especially with Volkanovski being the new blood in the division. Many people would want to see him against the champion at the time. That champion had to be Max Holloway, who just came off a win over Frankie Edgar at that time. So the fight went good. The story of the fight was leg kicks. Alexander Volkanovski was throwing massive leg kicks at Max Holloway, just chewing up the front leg, so much that Holloway actually had to switch from orthodox to southpaw in about round 3 of the fight. It's different because people say, oh, leg kicks can win the fight. Just ask Israel Adesanya when he fought Yoel Romero. It seems like that's the only strike he threw in that entire fight was leg kicks. It is a form of striking. It is a form of aggression, and it is a form of octagon control. 3 out of the many criterias it takes to win a round, let alone a fight. So leg kicks were the story in that first fight. But there's an old unwritten rule in MMA. To beat the champ, you have to truly beat the champ. And I mean either dominate him for 5 rounds straight from bell to bell, wire to wire, or you have to go out there and finish the champion. Volkanovski did not do that. It was a very close fight. Statistically, Alexander Volkanovski did outland Max Holloway. Max Holloway, though, wasn't just taking a knee for anyone. He wasn't taking a knee that night. He threw some really good strikes back, enough to probably steal a few rounds. That was one of those fights where I'm like, man, I have no idea who won. It was that close. It was tough, and I couldn't really. I've watched it many times, and I still can't pick a precise winner. Now, here's where Jon Jones comes into the mix. He could do a week of cocaine before his fight, a week's worth of cocaine before his fight. Now, he goes out, fights Alexander Gustafsson, somehow wins that fight after losing 3 rounds in my book. Same thing when he fought Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes won rounds 1, 2, and 3 in my eyes. If you haven't seen either of those fights, go and look. Go watch them. UFC Fight Pass, YouTube, wherever. And I'm sure you guys will have the same opinion as I do. However, both those fights, Jon Jones won when he shouldn't have. And it goes down to that unwritten rule. To beat the champ, you got to beat the champ. Volkanovski fought the champ, did very well against him. I'm not discrediting that. He gave Max Holloway the toughest fight he has ever had in a long time, since Dustin Poirier fought him in April of 2019. Yet, I don't think it was enough for him to win. I don't think Holloway did enough for himself to win either, which is why it should have been a draw. There is not enough draws in the sport of MMA, let alone the organization of the UFC, the greatest MMA organization in the world. Last draw I remember being in a title fight was Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo. There needs to be more of those. This fight was extremely reminiscent to a WEC fight back a long time ago, where both guys were just striking. One guy threw first, the other guy threw third. One guy threw, another guy threw. Just constant hand movement, constant back and forth. It was something special to watch. It was a very entertaining fight. Definitely wasn't a snooze fest, but it should have been a draw. And like that WEC fight that I am explaining to you, that fight was a draw. Volkanovski gets crowned the champ. He wins 48-47, 48-47, and 50-45 unanimous decision on all judges' scorecards. I thought that was a bunch of bullshit. I like I said, Volkanovski did do well against Holloway, but I don't think he did enough. And that fight should have been a draw, which would have led to the inevitable rematch that would happen at UFC Fight Island, UFC 251, July of 2020. The smack dab middle of the pandemic, one of the biggest fight cards we've had. I mean, Kamaru Usman was fighting Jorge Masvidal, Peter Yan was fighting Jose Aldo, and it was a huge card. The co-main event was the rematch that we were all looking for. The MMA world was kind of torn. People were saying, Max won. Volkanovski won. But not many were saying that fight should have been a draw, except me. That fight should have been a draw. So fast forward to 8 months later, July 2020, and Holloway wins. Flats out wins. He dominates him in the first round, comes out in a new fashion that we've hardly ever seen Holloway come out in. I mean, just coming at Volkanovski in a tenacious and nasty way that we've never seen him come at any of his opponents before. So he even drops him in that first round. He drops him in the second round with the head kick. Dropped him in the first round with the right hand. He's already banked 2 rounds on Volkanovski. He outstrikes him in round 3. Already, he wins 1 through 3. Then Volkanovski kind of changes the tide a little bit, but not enough. In round 4, gets a takedown. Didn't do shit with it. Round 5, lands a few big strikes. Holloway was returning back. Lands 2 big takedowns. But again, didn't do shit with them. This fight was extremely similar to Jon Jones versus Dominic Reyes, UFC 247, where Dominic Reyes outstruck Jon Jones in rounds 1 through 3, and in rounds 4 and 5, Jon Jones landed a few takedowns. Some wouldn't consider them takedowns, but in the world of wrestling, they are considered takedowns. Even though both shoulders were not flat on the canvas, it was still considered a takedown. Jon Jones didn't do shit with those takedowns, but they won in those rounds. Okay, no big deal. Dominic Reyes won those first 3. Nope. Jon Jones still won the belt. We don't know how. It is definitely one of the most controversial fights ever. Back to Holloway Volkanovski 2. Fight ends. Like I said, Holloway drops him in the first, drops him in the second, outstrikes him in the third. Volkanovski has a shitty takedown in round 4 and a shitty takedown in round 5 that he didn't do shit with. And who still wins? Alexander Volkanovski. Split decision. I think one had him winning unanimous. I'm going to have to watch that fight again, but it pains me to watch it knowing that Max Holloway should be the champion of the world, that he should have won that fight. Volkanovski should not be the champion. And in fact, him and Holloway should have had that trilogy going on. It was just insane. Many fighters and analysts were saying that the judges got that one wrong and Holloway should be the champion. And I agree 100%. And for Volkanovski to clown around saying, I'm the champ, I'm this, I'm that, count me as one of the GOATs because I beat one of them. Bro, you didn't even beat Holloway the first time, and you definitely didn't beat him the second time. So why are you parading that belt around like you're the big man on campus, like you're the real champion, when you still haven't proved yourself as one of the best? A lot of controversy, and I don't think it had enough controversy. It sucks. Like, I don't know if Volkanovski sold his soul to the devil. I'll get to more of that later. But yeah, it was truly remarkably alarming how the judges fucked that one up. So him and Holloway should be 1-1 with Volkan. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It should be 1-0-1 in favor of Holloway, because that one fight, their first fight, should have been a draw. Should have been a draw. Holloway won the second fight. It's just that plain and obvious. But the judges, it's been a problem in MMA for the longest time. So Volkanovski takes the rest of 2020 off, comes back in 2021, only for him to catch COVID. Thank God he recovered from that. He was scheduled to fight Brian Ortega at UFC 260 March 27th of 2021. They had their season of Tough, which only ramped up the anticipation for his fight with Brian Ortega even more. Brian Ortega got his title shot after beating the Korean Zombie. And that fight was a little strange. I thought that, maybe they shouldn't have been on the Ultimate Fighter together. I thought, with Holloway having a huge win against Calvin Kattar, a dominant win against Calvin Kattar, he proved that he's the best in the division, that he's miles ahead of the division. He deserves another shot at the title. Well, Volkanovski hasn't afforded him that opportunity. So I felt the UFC should have done an interim title between Brian Ortega and Max Holloway, with the winner getting another crack at Volkanovski. Had Holloway won that fight, we get the trilogy we also desperately deserve. Had Ortega won, Ortega would definitely be next in line to fight. Anyway, that fight happened, and we seen Volkanovski come out of true adversity. Death grip guillotine that Brian Ortega had him in. And let's not forget, Brian Ortega is probably one of the best submission artists, not only in the UFC, but in MMA as a whole. If that guy grabs a hold of your neck, you're going to sleep. If that guy has a triangle locked around your neck, you're going to sleep, or you're going to tap out. I give credit to Volkanovski that he didn't tap. I mean, he even saw the lights dimming, and if Brian Ortega just had a little bit more squeeze inside of him, maybe that fight would have gone Brian Ortega's way and he would be the new champion. But like I said, Volkanovski must have sold his soul to the devil, or he may just wanted it that bad. Dominated Brian Ortega that entire fight, and yeah, retained his title, defended his title the second time. But he was asking for people to put some respect on my name, blokes. That's what he was asking. I wasn't ready to do that, and I don't think the MMA masters were ready to do that. I think people were saying, okay, you need to beat Holloway like that. Say he beats Holloway the way he beat Brian Ortega, we'll give him his respect. Even I will. I'll probably be the biggest Volkanovski fan in the world. So then here's where the controversy comes in. It was announced in about mid-January, Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway trilogy fight official March 5th, T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. However, Holloway got injured. Kind of an undisclosed injury. I think it was a rib injury. But for Max Holloway to pull out of the fight, it's pretty bad. It's pretty serious. And he's not one to back out of a fight from nobody. He's not one to turn down a fight. Nothing. So you had to know it's pretty serious. UFC was looking for replacements, being that Holloway might not even be able to fight. Who did they come up upon? The Korean Zombie. I do not know why. I do not know why. That announcement had me absolutely fucking befuddled. Had me absolutely fucking hornswoggled. Why is he taking the easy way out? And to add more fuel to the fire that I'm presenting to you guys, the fight got announced about late January. Korean Zombie, Alexander Volkanovski, April 9th, Jacksonville, Florida, UFC 273. As the fight was in full swing, as the camps were commencing and Korean Zombie was going through his camp and things like that, Max out of nowhere says, I feel better. I could fight. Yeah, put me in, coach. I'm ready. Then the injury wasn't too bad. What? You mean to tell me you're okay to fight? And I was really upset and pissed for many reasons. One, because Max Holloway did not have to back out of that fight. He got hurt in mid-January. They moved the fight to April, which means he had almost an extra month to prepare. He could have just kept his injury under wraps, taken a few weeks off of training. And mind you, when he fought Volkanovski the second time in the middle of the pandemic, smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, he said he did not spar. He only hit pads. He trained over Zoom with his coaches. You mean to tell me he wouldn't have put up a better fight than the Zombie did? You mean to tell me that Holloway still wouldn't even have beaten Volkanovski this time around, even though he had almost the same training had he been hurt to the last fight he had against Volkanovski? That blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. Had he just taken a few weeks off, not trained, maybe the injury would have gotten better. It clearly did. Had the injury gotten better, he could have had about a good 5 weeks of camp, 4 weeks of camp. And we would have had the fight we need. We would have had the fight that would have completely ironed out the rest of the featherweight division. But no. Alexander said, mate, you got to stop. You got to stop. Like, he's discrediting Max for saying that he wants to back out of the fight. He's discrediting Max for saying he doesn't want to fight when that is the biggest pile of horseshit I have ever heard come out of a champion's mouth. I mean, he took the easy way out in fighting the Korean Zombie. There were rumors that Holloway was the backup for the main event should anything happen to either Volkanovski or the Korean Zombie. Obviously, nothing happened. Volkanovski went out and had the easiest fight of his career, got the easiest paycheck that he would ever get in his career. He probably didn't even have to train because Volkanovski is that good and the Korean Zombie is not. He literally took the easy way out. And yeah. Now, his post-fight interview, he's saying, all you featherweights, get your shit together. I might have to go up to 155, mate. You're all right, mate. I'm going to go up to 155. Really? You dumb Aussie bloke. What are you doing? You got one man to fight. And you chose not to fight him. And you mean to tell me you want to go up to the fucking lightweight division? You mean to tell me you want to fight anyone but Max Holloway? Oh, that doesn't sit right with me. That doesn't. He didn't beat Holloway definitively enough to call his own shots. He didn't defeat Holloway definitive enough to close that chapter, to turn that page. His only black eye are those two fights. Say he goes out there and starches Max Holloway, knocks him out cold, completely flatlines him, then I will have his respect. He will earn my respect, and he will be considered one of the greatest featherweight champions of all time. He's ranked pound for pound number 2 because he's taken the easy fights. Ortega was one of the easiest fights he's ever had, minus those 2 hiccups in that fight. The Korean Zombie would be anyone's easiest fight. It was Brian Ortega's easiest fight after almost a 2-year layoff. He is overrated. And the fact that he is already showing signs that he is ducking Max Holloway and ducking Henry Cejudo, who just said today he's coming out of retirement. He's like, oh no, Henry Cejudo has to go prove himself to the rest of the featherweight division. Really, dude? Really? You mean to tell me that one of the GOATs in the UFC, Henry Cejudo, doesn't deserve a shot at the title? One of the 2-weight world champions. You never even sniffed a second weight class. If there's anyone that needs to prove themselves, it is you, Volkanovski. It is you. You haven't proved shit to the MMA masses, other than that you're lucky that the MMA masses is appreciative of your rise, is appreciative of your title defenses, when in reality, you shouldn't even be the champion. And I'm just speaking the facts. And I wish these weren't the facts, but these are the facts that were presented. And I'm sorry, I just had to expose it. And if no one likes it, then hey, at least you tune in to watch. But yeah, that's just my take. That Volkanovski's overrated, took the easy fights, didn't beat Max Holloway either times, and I really don't think we will ever get that third fight between Holloway and Volkanovski. If we do, Amazing. Because Holloway's the only guy that has a true chance at beating Volkanovski. He's done it twice already. He's done it once because, like I said, the first fight was a draw. He's done it already. So I really hope Volkanovski gets his head out of his arse, head out of the clouds, and we will see that fight with Max Holloway. And we'll see if he is what he says he is, and if he is what the MMA masses says that he is. Try saying that 5 times fast. I just hope that we get some clarity, we get some perspective, because that fight with Max Holloway is easily the biggest fight in the featherweight division, and he's contradicting himself. Volkanovski is. He's saying, "Get your shit together, you dumb bloke." Holloway has his shit together. He's proven that he's ready for another shot at the title by beating Calvin Kattar, 50-45ing him across all scorecards, by having a fight of the year against Yair Rodriguez, dominating him. He's proved he's worth. So don't be ducking him. Don't be running away. Go prove you're the champ. Because everyone knows you lost that fight. But if you could go shut all of us up, then we'll give you your respect. But until then, sign the contract to fight Holloway, and we'll see if your big game talk is as big as your ego and as big as your big head.